Welcome to today's show. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to have you here. We've got a great conversation coming up for you. Before we get started, though, I ask two things real quick. Number one, if you feel like you've gotten value, you've gotten better, you have increased in your knowledge, you've learned something, anything of that nature, let your friends, your colleagues, your professionals around you know. You're at the next gig, tell them, hey guys, check out the Gig Ready podcast. Those guys are doing some cool stuff over there. I learned this, I learned that. I'd love to have you tell someone else about us. Secondly, if you've got something that you would love to hear about or share or know about or get better at, let me know. gigready@gigrent.com. Shoot me an email. Say, hey, Jordan, here's what's going on. Here's what I've got for you. Here's a great idea. Here's something I'd like to hear about or someone I'd like to hear from. Or maybe you'd like to be on the show. You think, you know what? I would enjoy that. That'd be a great time. Let me know. Shoot me an email. It'd be awesome. I'd love to have you. Thanks so much for listening, because this is the Gig Ready Podcast. Hey everybody, we're here today with Clem Harrod of Clem Co. and talking about all things projection and video. Quite excited to have him here. Clem actually just finished writing a book talking to not just projectionists, but anybody in the industry that has questions about the financial side, how to work in this industry. It fits right into what we're trying to do, which is talk about the people, the passions, the positions within the audiovisual industry. Clem, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Super happy to have you here. I'm really excited about our time together today.
Jordan, thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be on your show. I'm just a guest, so thank you.
Well, we are in the humble beginnings of working to teach people how to be better in the AV industry, how to be, as I say, gig ready, because ultimately we're going to have another gig, even though we're not gigging right now. And I'm excited for the future and what that holds, how we can get better. So as we dive in, looking at projection in and of it, as a profession, as a career, however they want to term it. Every event is a little bit different, whether it's one single screen, 10 screens, 100 screens, blends, mapping, all of that. When you come into a project as a projectionist, you're normally not involved directly from the beginning. A lot of times people say, oh, here's the drawing. This is what we're doing. How do you make it work? How do you see your role within the whole team as a projectionist and how you're going to execute on the end goal of which is to create a great show?
Well, one of the first things that I do is I take ownership. I take ownership of my part of the experience. When you think about what a salesperson has done, is they sold an experience. And then you get the creative people involved, and you get the technical director involved. You get all these different departments and these different people involved to take what was here in that right side of the brain, that creative place, and taking it to the left side to create the structure around it. And now we are using our skills and our talents to allow people to come inside of our world. Okay, That's how I view what it is that we do. Now with that, as a video projectionist, it is my responsibility to understand the video projection aspect of that event. So how many screens, how many projectors, the throw distance, the power, the cable path, all of those things are now important for me as part of my job as a video projectionist on that event. That's the first step for me. It's like, okay, what is our objective? What is our goal? How much time do we have to create this vision that someone else has had? And now I take the time through my process to understand my part in executing that.
Awesome. So let's talk about the process a little bit. If you had your druthers, the perfect scenario, how would you manage a project from start to finish? How do you start it from the moment someone says, hey, come on in, be a part of this, you're now on the team, to boom, last truck door is closed and the gears headed back to the shop?
Well, so I'd like to reverse kind of something that you said. Like you
Yeah.
said, if I had my perfect situation, well, it's my job to create my perfect situation.
Well
You
said. I
know,
love that.
so
Yeah.
it's that understanding from the beginning. I don't deal in expectations. I deal in agreements. So if you're working with me or working with my company, whether I'm on site or one of my video projectionists or any other um, um, technicians that are helping your event, we are a part of your team. We're not just showing up and doing the job. We're understanding what needs to happen from the beginning. So there are documents that I'm requesting from the drawings, from the production schedule, from the equipment list. Those are the things that are important to get the job done. Those are the things that we need to look at. Those are the things that we need to dissect and understand and have that relationship, have that conversation with the various crew members and the people involved in the planning. I'm not trying to come in at the last minute and then be expected to work a miracle. That's not what we do. That's not how we operate at Clemco, because we are we are an extension of your brand.
Yeah.
We have our own brand and we have our own way of coaching, leading, educating, and mentoring. But at the same time, your company has its mindset, has its way that it likes to deal with its customers. And we fall under that. At the same time, we're trying to do our best to deliver that high-end product that you deserve and your client deserves.
Awesome. So taking ownership, as you stated, first thing out the gate. Um, so let's walk through that process of, assessment, planning into execution on site. What does that process look like for you when you guys execute on each job?
Okay. So, these are things that I've written about in my video projection 101 book. So I have career projection in my video projection 101 book. I literally go through this entire
Got it.
frame. And it's just like, it's just taking those documents, taking what's the givens, right? We all have givens in this situation: the venue, the people involved, the crew size, the number of screens, the number of projectors, like I said, the throw distance, front or rear projection. There's an analyzing of the documents. Which projectors are we using? Do we have the appropriate lenses? Do we have the appropriate power, the signal? All of those, this like a mental checklist. And there's another checklist involved that involved in understanding the process, understanding what we have and what we need. Thinking about networking. Are we networking the projectors together? It's so many steps. And that's just through years of experience, right? Through years of knowing that this is what what prevented the event from being, at least on my part, what prevented the event from being as successful as I wanted. Yes, it was still successful, but what could I have done better?
Yeah.
What's another step that I could have taken to allow me to communicate with the stagehands better, to delegate some of the tasks that need to be done, for me to have done things in a more timely manner? How much more time do I need to do on the pre-production side before coming on site? All of these things are kind of going through my mind as I'm looking at the documents, preparing them, leading the team, looking at the projectors as they're coming in, separating them, knowing what projector lumens or bright or brand model, whatever, is going to various locations on site. That's just kind of, what I inherently had to learn. And I had great mentors. I've had great mentors in the industry: Phil Licari, Melvin LeGrand, Stuart Brown, Jerry Farnham, Mike Swinton. I'm sure there's some others. And those are just video projectionists. I could go on the side of engineers, from Robert Permenter, Ben Stanfield, Tim Durr, so many people that have just allowed me to understand what it is that they do. Matt Ellis, Rick Wagner, how they do their part, how they do their task, and how what I do helps them, which overall helps the client, right?
Yeah.
And so now just working together to really have a wonderful event.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that ultimately is the goal. Yeah, client walking away saying, wow, that was better than we could have ever expected it to be. And so we come in from the beginning. Tell me a little more about these documents that you're using to stay organized. As you mentioned, you have a video projection 101 book that goes through the step-by-step process. What are you using? I mean, of course, we all get the drawings, Vectorworks. How do you keep that all organized in your head, especially on a bigger job? Two screens is pretty straightforward, but you get into the bigger
Hmm.
job with the multiple delays and screens and all that stuff. What are you doing to help keep yourself organized?
So I don't want to come off as like a sales guy, right? um, so the video projection textbook is based off of the video projection workbook.
Okay.
So I literally have a binder that has my standard operating procedures all written out with dividers, and it has a Excel document as well that I use as part of my checklist process and keeping myself organized and thinking about the show, thinking that the notebook in an organized fashion, so that when I do go out on site, I have my drawings, I have my equipment list and my production schedule. Like those things are with me. Those things are my Bible for the week, right? Those are the things that I've looked at, those things that I've
Yeah.
studied prior to getting on show site. I've already executed and I've already built everything in my mind. When I go on show site, I'm just recreating what I've already done.
Yeah.
And
So for those of you that don't want to have to burn a bunch of time coming up with your standard operating procedures, Clem's the guy. He's got the info for you.
because and the only reason I did that was because like when I would go on job sites and I would go on show sites and working with certain people, and they're walking in the door for the first time looking at a drawing once the TD rolls it out. They have no idea what they're doing beforehand. Well, how can we be
Yeah.
efficient? How can we execute something to the best of our ability? How can we minimize double
Yeah.
work?
Well, I mean,
Right? That's the worst
of
feeling,
course.
doing double work when we could have just done it right the
Yep.
first time.
And if you take a lesson, take a page from the master electrician workbook. I mean, that's ultimately what you're doing. I mean, you're doing the pre-show. In the case of the master electrician, there is a significantly tends to be a lot more planning because they could have 300 fixtures and you might have 30. So, there's a balance there of what's different, but it's exactly the way to do it well. And that's another thing
Yes.
to have a conversation about in the future is certain people, um, you know, being able to find that pre-show time, being able to take some of that free time when you're sitting backstage staring at a projector to make sure it's working and taking that extra time to look for your next job and look at the next job so that you're better prepared. You're ready for that gig
Hmm.
or gig ready. I'll throw a little plug in there for what we're looking to do.
Nice, nice. I see what you did there.
So you have your documents, binder, all that stuff. I think it's outstanding and fantastic to put something like that together. I have a whole list as a technical director that's like, massive Excel spreadsheet big enough, it's like, okay. And it gets really granular. It's like, okay, here's pre-show list of all the things that need to be checked. Like these are the things that should be done with places to next to them. Okay, this is how I did this. This is the info regarding this. I mean, if all we try and do is do it from memory, we'll never remember everything. I've tried to do that. I'm sure when you were younger, before you got wise and put everything down on paper, you were doing the same thing. You're like, oh crap, and you show up and you're like, oh no, I needed that dog bone that converted the 4-pin to the 3-pin for the projector, and now I got to make it on site, and you're wasting time and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What other documents or software solutions? Is there anything else you're using to stay organized or to just execute on your job? Like, for instance, throw ratio, projector lenses. What do you use to make sure that you're picking the right lens for the job and having the proper equipment there?
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that you mentioned. Like, so there's a master electrician His name is Eric Durning.
Hmm.
He is a master electrician that I would bounce ideas off of because I saw how organized he had
Yeah.
to be. And I saw certain things about the process. And I began to ask him and question because that's something that did make sense to me. And I'm looking around like, why are no other projectionists doing this? Why are no other video projectionists thinking about it from this
Yeah.
perspective? And it just made sense to me. So yeah, shout out to Eric Durning and Richard Dunn for helping me to understand that. And so some of the programs that I do use to help continue on with my process are the various, you know, lens calculator or throw distance apps that you can easily get. I'm an iOS guy and a guy, Apple guy, but I'm sure they're available on the Android platforms from Projectionist, from the Alfred wide lens
The blend
calculator.
calculator. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Um, Panasonic has their lens calculator as well. There's another one, I think it's by, I like to pull, I keep them right here in this specific folder.
Yeah.
Lens
Yep.
Pro is one that
That's
I use
exactly
often.
what I was going to say.
You know, those things are key. Those things are key. But in addition to that, just the same way that you can use Microsoft Office or excuse me, Microsoft Word to type a Word document, you should be able to use Excel the exact same way and learning formulas and stuff like that. Vectorworks Viewer is very important for me. I intentionally have not purchased the the program because I like using the viewer so that I can teach other people through my platform how to use
Yeah.
viewer so they don't feel like they need to invest in um, Vectorworks itself because there are certain things as a video projectionist that I can do from the viewer that are just as that are key to allow me to be successful.
Very nice. I like that. Um, helping people to succeed that way. There are very basic tools that we have available to us already to accomplish those sorts of jobs. I think that's outstanding. So software, documents, documenting everything. I mean, as a technical director, I lean on my guys tremendously to, projectionist. If I know who that's going to be, I'll send them all the documents and say, hey, make sure I have what I need. Because I'm not the guy that's executing on that. I want to allow them to own that. I want to say, Clem, here's the design. This is what we're doing. Here's the video pull list. This is the current quote. What do we need? Is there something on here we don't have? I want you to have that power to say, hey, Jordan, I need an extra 500 feet of L630 to power these projectors over here. I mean, there's no service loop. The guys didn't, add enough cable for a service loop because then we get on site and suddenly everything's tied together. And I'm saying, Clem, why can't this truss go up? And you're saying, well, we didn't have enough cable. I want to avoid that at all costs. So that's outstanding. So let's talk about the on-site side of things. You're prepared. You've made all your notes. You've reviewed all the documents. You come on site. You walk in. 8 a.m. call time. We're at whatever hotel suits your fancy for that day. How are you managing the project on site? What are you looking for in terms of you're working with people, direction? Are you a super hands-on guy? Are you a hands-off, like delegate kind of guy? Talk to me a little bit about how you do the on-site side of things when it comes to projection.
Yeah, I'm a mixture. I'm a hybrid. There are certain things that I definitely delegate because those tasks aren't the best use of my time.
Yeah.
That's why we have stagehands. That's why we have people who are there to assist us, a projection assist, right? If I've already, like I said, if I already built it and built it here, and it's my job to go on site and execute it again, in my situation, or from my perspective, then there are things that I already know that need to be done, and so I'm delegating the off to stagehands for them to gather certain cables. These are the cables that I need, and this is what I need them to be labeled as, right? I'm not going to go do that because there are other things that I need to do as far as organizing my projectors and knowing where they need to go out for the truss, in the house or backstage, like making sure that we have all the lenses. There are things that I need to do, talking with the technical director, even though I've already done it, before we got on site. to confirm the cable paths, because there are things that there are always variables, and things could have changed, and those things may not have been made known
Yep.
to me just yet. So I'm reconfirming some of the things that need to be done, um, and then just kind of building that rapport as well with some of the other technicians that I haven't met, because we're in this together. We're working
Yeah.
together, and I don't want to come in as a guy that's straight up about business and this is what we're doing and we're getting this done. That's not my job. That's not how I operate. That's not how I function. That's not what I've done all these years to be successful. I genuinely want to get to know people and understand what's their drive, what's their motivation, and how and for all of us to understand how we're in this together. Um, so then running out some cables, I'll work on that with the team, because I want to make sure they're done right and they understand what it is that
Yep.
we're doing. When it comes to rigging up the projectors, I'm very hands-on on that with that, because there's a liability factor, there are liability issues. I'm not going to just delegate that and be hands-off, because at the end of the day, I'm
Yep.
responsible, and not just from a liability perspective, but from a brand perspective. Like when you're hiring for one of your event, and there's a presenter on the stage, and he's given his presentation, right? I know that he's put time and effort into that presentation,
Yep.
right? And now there's an audience of people looking at that screen and looking at him, because that's a representation of him. The way I approach it is, if you're looking at a screen, that's a representation of me. When you see that screen, you see me, because that's my body of
Yeah.
work. That's my all. I'm putting my all into that screen. And that's what, part of that mindset is. That's what that projection 101 mindset is. I'm going to break it down to the basics and help everyone to understand the basics and understand what it is that we're doing, so that we can build upon that and move forward in that mindset.
Yeah. And every single piece of what we're doing is critical. Giving 100%, making sure that a projector, even off 2 degrees, can cause a challenge for you. It's like, I'm the technical director coming to you saying, Clem,
Mm-hmm.
why are we still working on this one projector? And you don't want to be the guy to tell me, well, I let the stagehands do. Ultimately, it's you, when you have to take
Nope.
responsibility for what you're doing. Being
Yeah.
involved and learning.
And I'm always going to take responsibility, right? I'm not going to blame it on the
Yeah.
stagehand, because ultimately that stagehand or whomever, like I'm not even saying stagehand as a degrading thing, but the, these various people fall under my
Yeah.
leadership. And if I've led them astray, then I'm going to take ownership and responsibility for not
That's
leading
right.
them in the right
That's
direction.
right. 100%. It takes a lot of guts to be willing to do that and take on that responsibility. And I would say that in the AV industry, I would say, I don't want to say 50%, but a lot of people like to try and pass the buck when there are mistakes. I think that's probably one of my biggest frustrations about what we do, is everybody is trying to cover their butt. Instead of being someone who is willing to step up and say, you know what, I screwed up. That's on me. I know that I'm kind of changing the direction there, but I
I can
yeah,
pivot.
I would much rather somebody, like yourself, who says, you know what, every single thing is it may not be completely under my control, but it's under my responsibility. And when we take that on, that I think is one of the big components of learning how to work in our industry, is the ability to just take responsibility for your screw ups and know that if you're around a group of people that understand that, you're not going to get fired the first time you make a mistake. And I think that there's a stigma in our industry that says, you screw up, you're done. And you're going to be thrown to the wayside. And I've learned that the best leaders within our industry are the people that say, okay, we learned from that, we're moving on to the next thing. And they actually give more grace, they give more chance to people to actually learn, because firing somebody for screwing up doesn't actually really help you in any way. It just means that you put someone else there that has no clue what's going on, versus somebody who can come in, or was there, I should say. They mess up. They say, okay, we learned from this. We're not going to do this next time. And then they actually can execute on that going forward, and be more productive and do a better job, than
But Jordan, just think about it from this
Yeah.
perspective as well. If you are able to share that with someone made a mistake, right? We're putting it in air quotes. It's not
Yeah.
a mistake. It's an opportunity to
Yeah.
teach,
Yep.
right? If someone did something that wasn't as favorable as you would have
Mm-hmm.
liked, right? And you realize that, and you have an opportunity to help them to
That's right.
learn how to fix that error, you have the ability to change the trajectory of that person's
Yeah.
life based off of that one opportunity in that one situation.
Yeah.
Their entire life, which then affects their life and affects their kids' lives or whomever's life. Like you have the ability to change generations by just by educating
I
someone.
Man, you could not be more right about that. One of the things that I've always, and this is just me being vulnerable, that I've always had trouble with is having those hard conversations with people about something that is so personal, like failure, or perceived failure, I should say. You know, um, I heard this quote a few weeks ago by a guy named Zig Ziglar. He said, "Failure is an event; it's not a person." And being able to separate yourself from that failure, and understand that it's not who you are, it's merely something that happened, is such a great springboard to help people know that when I come to them and I say, "Hey, listen, this was not ideal or preferred. Next time, let's do this instead." That way, they're like, "Whoa, I didn't just get screamed at or yelled at. I didn't get run into the ground and say that I was a terrible person and I'm horrible." I've run into those people and it's not fun. I mean, it ruined me for. I actually had some situations back when I was younger where for years it like ruined my confidence, my ability to do my job. I mean, everything, because there was one thing that happened, and basically they ran me into the ground, and thankfully I was able to kind of overcome that. But it took way more time than them saying, "Hey, I love how you said that. This was not the preferred method, or this was not the ideal way to do this here. It wasn't necessarily a failure, but let's do this better on this next one," and boom. And then now suddenly they're like, "Holy crap. Like, yeah, maybe I messed up, but we have way more opportunity now to do it better next time." So
Exactly.
I love that. Well, nice
Exactly.
little, nice little,
Well,
go ahead.
no, it's a nice little what?
I
I'm
was just saying
sorry.
nice little rabbit trail, but go ahead. No, I keep going.
Yeah, no. And that's the reason why I wrote my book, Career Projection 101. As you can see, Projection 101 is
A
a
theme,
running
yep.
theme in what it is that I do. Because that's kind of our motto. That's what we live by. That's what I live by, and my company being an extension of me, right? Um, but that's why I wrote my book, Career Projection 101, because I felt like a failure in certain aspects of my career. You know, as a technician and as a camera operator, I did 15 years in sports, had a wonderful career. I've done college national championships. I've done NBA finals, NBA All-Star games, um, uh, World Series, baseball World Series, Stanley Cup finals. You know what I mean? I've done all of these great things. I've worked for Fortune 100 companies, doing events, traveling abroad, seeing parts of the country in the world that I never thought that I would see, right? But in all of that, because of my lack of knowledge and my lack of education, I was not prepared as a business owner, right? As an independent contractor, as a sole proprietor, I am a business
Yeah.
owner, right? So I did 15 years as an independent contractor before I left the sports industry, and I even trained my replacement. I trained the person that was going to take my spot because I was camera three. That's who I was. Under that basket at a Magic game, you saw that position, you saw me, and I owned it,
Yeah.
right? Just like I own every single job. But doing that and giving my all to the companies, to Fox, to Turner, Fox Sports, Turner, ESPN, ABC Sports, whomever came to town, I gave my all to that project. But at no point was I investing back in myself. At no point was I thinking I need to think long term when my mind and my body begin to reject the work that I'm doing. How will I be taken care
Yeah.
of? Right. And so I felt like a failure at that because I wasn't prepared when I left,
Yeah.
you know? And so in that understanding, in that mindset, and as a technician would, I reverse engineered the problem. Okay, this was the issue. This was the problem. How do I go back to fix the problem? And what do I need to know if I were to go back to my childhood? Or, I started off literally going back to my childhood. I did. I taught in my book. I'm talking about my grandfather and my mother a little bit and their roles as an artist and independent contractors in a sense, and how that led to me walking into this, right, or them being in a W-2 world as well,
Mm-hmm.
and not knowing and being able to teach me all of this. But I had to find this information out for myself. So to prevent someone else from going through that lecture or that hardship, I started having those difficult conversations,
Yeah.
right? I started having those difficult conversations on a show site. So instead of talking about to somebody, hey, so what's your next gig? Or how you been doing? You've been busy? Instead of talking about that, instead of talking about the traditional surface things, I wanted to be able to produce a body of work that could change the trajectory and change the life of someone else, and essentially my younger self.
Yeah. That's awesome. Let's let's go to the other side of it. So you have the person who, you know, there's something they can do better. How do you approach that person, that individual? Because that's a really hard navigation, especially if it's someone maybe you don't know very well. You're not their buddy. My friend, I can come over and put my arm around and be like, bro, that wasn't very sharp, or like, there's a little bit more joking. How do you approach that with somebody that you don't necessarily know very well, to have that really tough conversation of, hey, listen, I'm not mad at you, but this can't happen again.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, come to it with an open heart. Come to it from a soft perspective, and let this person know that, like, just be vulnerable within yourself. Like, don't let this person. You're not walking up to this person as if you're God or you're the Almighty, never making any mistakes. Like, yeah, I too make mistakes. Like, and I'm just trying to help you to be better.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting on you about what you did wrong. This is an effort to help you to be better for the future. And you know what? The future is in that conversation. The future is the next task you have that person do, because now in that very next task, they're going to think about what it is that they did and how they can be better. And then at the same time, you're building that comfort level and that rapport with them as well.
Yeah. And how do you, from a mental standpoint, let's say I would say most people are receptive when you approach humbly, when you approach it with the idea of, I'm human too. I, I've made so many, that I can't even count the amount of mistakes I've made. But,
Hmm.
when somebody doesn't respond favorably in that scenario, what do you do? What's your mental process when someone's like, whatever, man, like it was just that one time, it was that one thing, like they get real haughty and angry and frustrated that you approach them about something that they did wrong, feeling like you're attacking them. What is your, because you can't really say anything to that person. It's not like you can be like, well, you should really listen to me. Like that doesn't work. What's your mental process to kind of rebound from that kind of scenario?
It's just understanding that we're all human, and I a lot of times I'll internalize it and I'll think about how could I have communicated better? What could
Yeah.
I have done to make that situation a little less um, anxious for that
Mm-hmm.
individual? Because the person felt threatened. The person felt threatened about how I was approaching them. So how can I do my job better and communicate my message to them in a better way?
Yeah. Awesome. That great way to look at that, and a little self-reflection and learning how to, um, ultimately it's, I can't even think of the word right now. Self-awareness
Yeah.
of what you're working on, what you're doing. And self-awareness is a trait that is very tough to learn. I've discovered in this industry, not only myself, not being supremely self-aware, but then other people, that are learning how to be self-aware within what they're doing. And the more we can help people to get into that, like, hey,
Yeah.
look at what did I do? How can I do it differently? Because like that's where the humility comes from in the first place. Is like my goal is to help somebody else get better, but man, I got to look right here first and foremost. I mean, for me, every show that I do, whether it's sitting on the plane or I just finished closing the truck and I'm walking back to my room or whatever, like I'm thinking about what are the things that how could I have done, even if it was a great show,
Hmm.
maybe I could have, maybe in the advanced process, I could have done XYZ better. Or, maybe I could have shaved 20 minutes off the load in because we weren't moving the stage at the right time, or we weren't, and yeah, did it affect anything? Did it cost anybody extra money? No. But ultimately we want to be as efficient. We want to be as good as we possibly can be. Of course, we travel a lot. We do a lot of work, long hours, long days. What are the things that you're traveling with when you're going from gig to gig? What are the things that you travel with?
Well, I obviously have my work box, right? I've got my tools, but that's
Yep.
just whatever, right? Everybody has their tools. But what I actually travel, one of the most important things that I travel with is my ambiance kit.
Okay.
You're like, yeah,
Awesome.
you said, okay, like, what's
Oh
this?
no, no,
What's
no,
an
no.
ambiance?
I know exactly what it is. I spent more than enough days touring with some good friends that like they have their carpet. They have I mean everybody's a little bit different, but they have their coffee maker or their incense or their like the little light or what does your kit look like?
So for me, yeah, I have it's called an aurora light.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's it has a variation of colors, and then it has
Okay.
like a little movement on top of it, so you feel like you're underwater.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
right, and then there's my changing out the light bulbs. Red and like a hue of blue, purple blue are my preferred colors. So
Okay.
I kind of spread those evenly throughout the room. I've had multiple, do a little scarf action, a little candle, just to kind of create that scent and that smell. And always have my Bluetooth waterproof earbuds. It's just I like to create an environment that feels like home, right? If I'm
Yeah.
traveling, then I want to feel like I'm home no matter where I go. It's just an extension of everything's an extension of me, extension of my comfort, extension of
Yeah.
my haven. And so even when I'm walking, like I have a bubble around me that is my haven and my safe space. And I'll welcome people in and I'll throw little sparks of that bubble out as well. But it's just trying to create and sustain a place of comfort as we travel around the world, um, giving parts of ourselves and our souls to the people and the events that we do.
That's awesome. So are those? I assume that those are like the next question. Of course, is the top three things that you need on every show. Are those the three things, or are there like the things that you have to have at every show that are like these are the top three things I need to have? Is it the aurora light and the stuff you put in your room, or are there other things there?
Um, Top three? No, it's pretty much that. I mean, it's pretty much stays in a bag. Stays in a bag,
Hey,
ready to go.
that's right. Awesome, dude. I
um,
love
the,
that.
the the top three. I mean, obviously, like my phone, just to stay connected with the family. I gotta stay
Yeah,
connected with the family and the
that's right.
kids through the various messaging. Just trying to stay on top of my schedule. I don't travel with my a Bible in hand per se, but I've got my app, to kind
Yep.
of keep me grounded and keep me connected. Um, it's hard to say what a top three things in that are because all of it is just one. And that's just kind of how I roll, if you will.
Yeah, it's all one package. You
Yeah.
hire
Yeah,
Clemco. This
you
is
buy
what's
the whole
coming
deal.
with it. That's
It's all
right,
coming
man.
with it,
That's
right? I mean,
perfect.
this in this whole conversation, I'm sure, as you can see, it's just this is all Clemco. This is not just an extension of me, but this is anybody who's working under my brand. This is an extension of who we are, and this is what
Yeah.
we kind of what I believe, and this is how we work.
Yep. 100%. And consistency is key. I have another good friend that's a technical director, and we've talked about this before, the process of the travel and going from one place to the other. And he is very religious is like it's kind of the way to say it, but he's very, regimented about what he does and the process and what that looks like. It's like, okay, I go from here to here and I do it this way and then I do it this way. And I unpack my bag when I get to my room and I do, because you want it to feel not only feel, but you need that familiarity to be able to settle your mind and do good work, and do the stuff that we've been asked to do in a place that's unfamiliar to us. And so I think that's critical. Now, as a freelancer, projectionist, how are you finding work? And maybe now you don't need to. I mean, everybody just calls you, boom, it's like phones ringing off the hook all the time. But when you need to go out and find work, when you need to, or when you were younger and you were just getting started, what are the things that you did to, expand your network, help people know you do what you do and you do it well, and give them a way to find you and get more work as a freelancer?
Yeah. So that is actually one of the chapters in my book. Is, how do I get new clients? I wrote 2 chapters actually on that subject. Chapter 2 is how do I get clients. Chapter 4 is how do I build and maintain relationships. All right.
Yeah.
So there's multiple strategies. There's multiple ways to look at it. I think a lot of people just kind of need to do what's true to themselves and true to who they are. Whether that's networking on social media, whether that's networking in person, whether that's going to the bar, whether that's doing other things outside of work, just doing different things, whatever's true to who you are, to maintain that relationship and to build that rapport, and to build that trusting sense where people understand you, understand your work ethic, and understand and trust that you will do a good job on show site. That's what it really is. It's a matter of building trust with someone so that they
Yeah.
know that you will be successful at what they ask you to do.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. That's great. What is the toughest job you've ever done as a freelancer? That just
something with a lot of hours,
Yeah.
something with a whole lot of hours. Because like I said, I'm giving my all to an event, right? And so if there's a short load-in process, a long event, short load-in process, where I'm forced to give so much of myself in a dedicated period of time, where you're pushing it to the limit.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's hard. I think about, loading in a show and having some technical issues with a computer and having to call someone else in to kind of make sure that it's done in time. But I had to do 100-foot curved screen and load it all in ready for rehearsals in 24 hours, and double stack projectors and all that's flown. It's a lot. It was a lot to do, and warping all of that. But at the end of the day, just get it done. Pull together the team, you pull together the efforts, and we get the job done. So even in a difficult show, a challenging show, you learn how to do it better and make a positive out of a negative, or never see it as a negative in the first place.
That's right. And you did it in 12 hours anyways, right? I mean, that was 24. That was like the extra time that you didn't need, right?
Hey man, whatever it takes to get the job done.
No, man, I know. That's a tough one, man. 100-foot curve. Was it a full 180 degree like that, or was it a softer curve than that?
It was a pretty aggressive curve.
Oof.
It was a pretty aggressive curve. Yeah.
That's a tough one. Well, good. Well, good on you, man. That's awesome. Fantastic. What do you like the most about what we do? Being a projectionist, be not just part of a team, but what do you like the most? What drew you to step away from sports and move into projection?
The opportunity to grow, opportunity to do something different. As a camera operator, I was on the court. I was in the environment. I was in the middle of it all. And to move up from where I was already at a very high point in my career. To move up is to move in the truck. I didn't want to leave the environment. I didn't want to leave being in the midst of the fans, in the midst of the event, the sports.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just kind of felt like, okay, it's time. I can move on. I can move on, and moving over here, there's more opportunity. I can make more money in a shorter period of time, right? Which minimizes the amount of time that I'm away from my family and allows
Yeah.
me to be more focused on that event during that period of time. And when I'm done, I can be with my family. Who's my son's ready in the other room? Where it's like, hey, Dad, what's going on? But that's who I am right now, right?
Yeah.
I gave a lot of myself to my career, to getting to this point of understanding what it took for me to be successful. And now I'm at a place where it's like, okay, this is what I learned. This is what I experienced over all of these years of studying television production in multiple facets of the industry at the same time. I did a lot in a shorter period of time. And now it's like, okay, this is the information that I've learned as an independent contractor. Now I am giving this to you. We'll be successful. And I'm gonna go and spend time with my family because I didn't for so long.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, I know we're working to get wrapped up here. Two last things. Number one, if somebody wants to become a projectionist, they want that to become their career. They're saying, man, that looks awesome. I have to say it's one of my first loves as being a technician, being a projectionist, creating the environment, whether it's mapping or screens or blends. If they want to work their way into that, what can they do? And I'm sure you talk about this in your book, but what can they do to become a
To
to become a
become
projectionist? Yeah, what can they do to work their way into that?
study, if you're already on site, study what other people are doing, build
Yeah,
relationships with other projectionists, and just study their methods, observe, ask questions gently. Don't be too aggressive when someone's in the middle of trying to work, right? But I mean, that's how I did it. There were no schools, there were no classes, there were no certifications. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, right? Because it is helping you to move up, but there's something to be said for experience. And yes, you're
yep,
learning from the experience from other people in these controlled environments. But what happens when you're not in the controlled environment? So I'd say the first step is to get to know a video projectionist, build a relationship with them. If you're already on site, study from them. If you aren't doing shows, if you're walking into this industry for the first time, start from the ground up as a stagehand, work your way up, take
hmm
some classes. Yes, education is key, right? Take some classes so you can learn um, the aspects of the projector, techniques, things like that. But from those classes, don't walk on the show site and say, I'm a projectionist. Because no, you're not a projectionist. You a video projectionist. You're someone who's taken video projection classes. There's a
yep,
difference. And I'm not knocking anyone for their process, for anyone for the steps that they're taking in their career. Just understand that there is a way to do it. And there's a way to also build respect and rapport in the industry by going through some of the things and getting some events under your belt before just walking into a large scale event.
yeah. And they should buy the book Career Projection because that is the number one ticket to becoming a projectionist as your career. So the aside from buying the book, which I need to get a copy of it, honestly, I think it's
You will.
yeah,
You can go to clemcoav.com forward
perfect.
slash career 101.
Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do, I'll actually put everything in the notes within there. So, we'll put a
Yeah,
link to the
man,
book.
definitely.
We'll put everything else in there so that everybody knows how they can get their hands on it. Um, you know, we've been on a long break. Nobody's been gigging, but it's going to come back. We're going to have more opportunity. What are two
Hmm.
things that every individual, whether they are video, audio, lighting, special effects, scenic, doesn't matter, that they can do to be more gig ready the next time we're doing gigs? What are two things that you can think of? They could be the smallest, the biggest. How can we be more ready to, how can we be more gig ready the next time we come back and start doing shows again?
I think one of the most important things that someone can do during this time is to understand their budget,
Okay.
understand their cash flow, and understand what's going on with their finances, right? We've gone through a time where we haven't had any work come in. So you've had to go through the process of stripping down to the bare essentials, right?
Yep.
So when money starts flowing back in, don't just jump right back to where you were. Don't do that. It's not the most responsible thing. Operate at a place, at a sustainable place in life and in your business, and just continue to grow that way. Right? A budget is is the most important thing as an independent contractor, as any company, any business, to understand your finances. On top of that, continue to build your relationships. Don't just sit in your corner during this time when people are having Zoom meetings, people are still trying to have networking events. People are doing things to build their business and build their brand. Continue to stay connected to people in the industry. So mind your money, mind your finances, and continue to be connected to people in the industry. Top 2 things to do.
Outstanding. Great wisdom there in terms of understanding that you're the first person to talk anything about finances in all of everything that we've been, the past 10 episodes and everything else. And it's so important and critical to understand that. So thank you for bringing that up. I love that. Thanks again for coming out today. I know, that finding time can be challenging, family and everything else going on. So thanks so much for taking the time. Career Projection is the book that Clem Harrod has written. It is a book focused on helping you be better at not just projection, but audiovisual and learning how as a freelancer.
Any independent contractor. Independent contractor, any small business owner. Like, I have a personal trainer that I work with who also uses this book. So please don't let the title confuse you. This is not about video projection. This is about career projection. And we're using the word projection as forecasting, forward thinking, how to achieve something in your latter years as you start today.
I hadn't even thought about that. But projection, dude, that's fantastic. Well done, sir.
That's why I'm a projectionist, not video projectionist. I'm a projectionist. I'm talking about today for your tomorrow. Come on, man.
That's awesome. I love it. Great, dude. It's such a great inference. That's fantastic. So give us real quick, how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to Clemco, they want to talk to Clem Harrod? What's the best way to reach out and chat?
Well, I'm available on all platforms, right? All social media platforms. LinkedIn, not so much. If you really want to get in contact with me or find me, message me through Instagram. Like, I'm a visual person. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. My website is clemcoav.com, CLEMCO, period. AV is the brand, right? Clemco AV, but the website is clemcoav.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, just hit me up.
Perfect. We'll link it. We'll link it in the show notes. We'll also link to the book. You should get your copy. See if you can beat me to getting mine. And I hope you guys have an outstanding day. Clem, thanks for joining us today. And couldn't have been happier with the outcome. Great conversation, and really had a great time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks. Have a great day. Thanks for listening today. It's been a great episode, and I hope you learned something. If you did, go out and tell somebody. Let them know that they can be a better professional too. The best thing that you can do for those around you is help them become better at what we do and how we do it. As professionals, there is nothing more that we want to see than an amazing event, and events don't happen without you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part. Let us know how we can do better, and we'll see you next time.